Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You ever get that feeling where you're like really trying hard to learn something new, but it just doesn't click?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or like the flip side, when it just feels so natural, almost like effortless.
Right. Like, why does some learning feel so much easier, even if the task itself is kind of similar?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a great question.
Well, today, we're going to try to figure that out. We're digging into why that happens.
We are.
And we've got this super interesting study to help us. It's called Using Primary Knowledge in Unpopular Statistics Exercises.
What the touchy title.
Right. And it's from Educational Psychology Review. They actually found some really cool stuff about how our brains learn.
Yeah, this one is fascinating. It really sheds some light on how we approach new information
Hmm.
and how that can totally impact how well we learn and even how motivated we feel.
It's all about the type of knowledge we're using, right?
Exactly. So,
Mhm.
think about learning something like statistics.
Mm, don't remind me.
Well, that's exactly the point. This study shows that the type of knowledge we use to work through a problem, like a statistics problem, can make a huge difference.
So it's not just about the math itself, but the way it's presented.
Right. And our goal today is to really break this down for you so you can understand these different types of knowledge and hopefully use that understanding to make even those tricky subjects, the ones that make you go, ooh, feel a little bit easier to handle.
I like it. Less of, more aha moments, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so this whole thing hinges on this idea of primary versus secondary knowledge. Can we start there? What exactly is primary knowledge?
Well, think about it this way. Primary knowledge, it's the kind of knowledge that's been essential for humans to survive for like forever,
It's like really basic stuff.
Right. Stuff that's evolved with us over time, like recognizing faces,
Right.
or being able to spot food.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The article really emphasizes that our brains, they process this kind of information without even breaking a sweat. Like it's just automatic.
Like it's wired in.
Exactly.
So like seeing a familiar face, your brain just instantly knows who it is.
Boom. No effort.
That makes sense. Now, what about the secondary knowledge?
Okay, so secondary knowledge is like the stuff we learn later on in life. Think mathematics, grammar,
Yeah.
those more abstract academic concepts.
Oh, yeah. So it's like the stuff we learn in school.
Exactly. And the article points out that to process this kind of knowledge, it takes a lot more brain power. Like you got to really focus and be motivated to keep going.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not as automatic. You got to put in the work.
You got it.
So primary knowledge is like instinctual, and secondary knowledge is more like learned.
That's a good way to put it.
But how do they connect? Like,
Yeah.
how does one build on the other?
Great question. The researchers actually found that primary knowledge, it forms the base for secondary knowledge. Like think about it.
Okay.
Our more complex understandings, often they start with those basic intuitive abilities that we have naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Like think about learning the alphabet, right?
Mhm.
It's a pretty abstract system, but you learn it because you already understand spoken language.
Right. Which is more primary.
Exactly. The simpler stuff, the more fundamental stuff, it makes way for the complex stuff.
Cool. So the study gives some examples to help make this clear.
It do. So primary knowledge, think recognizing faces or food. And secondary knowledge, think mathematics or grammar.
Got it.
And just think about the difference in your brain when you're dealing with those different things.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like remembering a grammar rule, it takes so much effort.
hmm
But knowing if a fruit is ripe, you just kind of know, right?
Exactly. Different mental experiences for sure.
Now the study focuses on statistics, right? Why statistics?
Well, the article is pretty straightforward about this. Statistics, it's tough.
Tell me about it.
And students often, they just don't like it.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate. It's like probability calculations, data sets.
Yeah.
It can feel so abstract and disconnected from like real life.
Totally. It's just a bunch of rules and formulas that feel like they don't really apply to anything.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads to the interesting part, right? How did the researchers actually study this?
Okay, so they did these 3 experiments, and they had university students working on statistics exercises.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The exercises were all structured the same way in terms of the statistics. Like the actual math was the same for everyone.
So the core concepts were the same.
Right. But they changed the content of the problems.
Interesting. So how did they do that?
Okay, so some of the exercises, they used content that tapped into primary knowledge.
So like things we're naturally good at.
Yeah, like social interactions, recognizing objects, quantities of like everyday stuff.
Right.
And then other exercises, they used more abstract content, stuff that would align more with secondary knowledge.
So like one problem might be about recognizing facial expressions, And another might be about some abstract variable.
Exactly. Same statistical principle, different packaging.
Interesting. And the study focused on problem solving, right? Not just memorizing stuff.
Right. They wanted to see how people actually used the knowledge.
Okay, so they gave students these different types of statistics problems. What did they find?
Well, the results were really cool. The article highlights that when students were working with problems that used primary knowledge content, they did way better.
Really?
Yeah. They solved the problems faster too. And get this, they stayed more motivated.
Wow. So better performance, faster work, and they actually enjoyed it more.
It seems that way. It really shows you that how you frame something can make a big difference.
Big time.
But here's the really interesting part. The students, they didn't even realize that the primary knowledge content was making things easier.
No way. So they weren't like, oh, this is easier because it's about faces.
Nope. They weren't consciously aware of it, which the researchers thought was pretty amazing.
That is wild. So it was like their brains were just naturally drawn to that type of information, and they didn't even know it.
It seems like it. It suggests that there's this kind of unconscious fluency happening, like our brains just know how to process that primary knowledge more efficiently.
Fascinating. Now, what about the problems that used secondary knowledge? What happened there?
So when they presented those abstract problems first, the ones that relied on secondary knowledge, performance went down, and their motivation seemed to take a hit too.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like hitting a wall right away.
Exactly. It's like trying to run before you can walk.
Makes sense. But the study also looked at the order of presentation, right?
They did. They wanted to know what would happen if they introduced the primary knowledge content first and then presented the more abstract problems.
So like priming the brain with the easy stuff before hitting it with the hard stuff.
Exactly. And you know what? It made a difference. They found that presenting this primary knowledge exercises first created a more positive learning experience overall.
Interesting. So it wasn't just about having relatable examples. It was about the order, too.
Exactly. Like starting with the familiar paved the way for them to engage better with the tougher stuff later on.
So it built some confidence or something?
Maybe. Or it could be that it activated certain neural networks that made it easier to learn the more abstract stuff.
Okay, so primary knowledge helps with learning and motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Like, why does our brain like this kind of information so much?
Well, the researchers, they dug into how our brains are structured. And they basically said that our brains have evolved to be really good at processing primary knowledge.
Makes sense.
Because think about it, recognizing threats, finding food that's kept us alive for a long time.
Yeah, that stuff is crucial.
Right. So our brains are basically wired to prioritize that kind of information. It's like a built-in survival advantage.
Wow. So it's not just about learning, it's about survival too.
Yeah. And processing secondary knowledge, it's like a whole new skill we have to develop. It takes more conscious effort.
So our brains aren't naturally good at it.
Not in the same way. It's not our default mode.
This is making me rethink how I learn things. Like, maybe I should be looking for ways to connect new information to stuff I already know really well.
That's exactly what the study suggests.
So even with something like statistics, if we can find ways to connect it back to those basic instincts, we might actually enjoy learning it more.
And learn it better. The study strongly suggests that even with those subjects that we tend to avoid, if we can incorporate some of that easy-to-process primary knowledge, it can really help.
That's so encouraging. And
Yeah.
the best part is you don't need to completely change the curriculum.
Right. Just be more mindful of the examples and the context you use when you're teaching something abstract.
So instead of starting with like supply and demand curves, maybe you start with a real-world example about how the price of apples goes up in the winter.
That's a great example. The underlying concept is the same, but the starting point is something more relatable and tangible.
I love that. So it's about lowering that barrier to entry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this applies to way more than just school,
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're trying to learn a new software program,
Oh, yeah.
maybe start with the features that have obvious visual outcomes.
Right. So you can see what you're doing.
Exactly. Get comfortable with that before you dive into the more complex stuff.
This is so cool. Okay, before we wrap up, I just want to be clear about something.
Sure.
The research we talked about today, it's all about how our brains learn. There's no political stuff in here.
Nope. Purely cognitive science.
So just to recap, the main takeaway for everyone today is this.
Hit us with it.
When you're facing a subject that just feels overwhelming or boring, especially if it's full of abstract ideas, try to connect it back to something you already understand really well.
Right. Something intuitive.
Yeah. By bridging that gap between the complex stuff and those basic instincts, you can actually make learning easier and way more fun.
You can.
And it might even help you solve problems in other areas of your life, too.
It might. It's all about finding those entry points, those things that your brain just naturally grabs onto.
Love it. Thanks for breaking this down for us.
Happy to be here.
And to everyone listening, we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.